This video is brought to you by Skillshare.
Beginner versus pro, what's the difference? What's the difference between a good shot and a bad one? And what can we do to make our average looking footage look much more interesting? Well, in this video, I'm going to be showing you some common filmmaking mistakes, as well as ways to fix them, and giving you tips on shooting professional looking B-roll. It's coming up. Hey everyone, Steve here from Learn Online Video, and today I'm in this incredible location in the southwest of England where I'm going to be showing you the difference between beginner and pro when it comes to shooting professional looking B-roll sequences. I'm going to be shooting two sequences at this location today. The first sequence is going to be how somebody who is just starting out might capture this location, including all the mistakes they might make when it comes to shooting B-roll sequences. And with the second sequence, I'm going to capture it how a professional would capture it. I'm going to be thinking about camera movement, framing, composition. And at the end of this video, I'm going to edit both of those sequences together with music, color grading, and sound effects to see what results we get. And hopefully, you'll be able to see a huge difference between those two sequences and have a much better understanding as to why one looks much better than the other. You can then apply these same techniques to your videos. But with that out of the way, let's jump straight into this tutorial and start shooting some footage. Okay, let's start with the opening shot. So how might somebody who's just starting out capture an opening shot to a B-roll sequence? Well, let's open up the camera app on this phone and select video and go through a few common mistakes. Now, I'm going to hit record. I haven't put too much thought into this shot. I do have my grids enabled, but I haven't really paid much attention to sort of framing and composition techniques or anything like that. I also haven't locked my focus and exposure, which isn't the end of the world because it's not particularly cloudy, sunny. We've got quite consistent light today. I'm also not really thinking about camera movement. I'm just holding it relatively still. Now, I'm also at eye level. This is something that a lot of beginners do. They just shoot everything at eye level because that's the easiest way, but always think about framing and composition. Think about maybe you could get lower, maybe you could get higher, maybe you could put something between you and your focal point to create a bit more depth. But for now, this is my opening shot because I'm a beginner. Now, how would somebody with a bit more experience capture an opening shot to this location? Well, there's a few things you can do. The first thing that I like to do when it comes to an opening shot is to reveal it, maybe create a bit more anticipation rather than just cutting straight to that location. We could, for example, start from behind these rocks and then lift the camera up to reveal our location. Let's give it a go. This time I'm going to tap and hold my focal point to lock focus and exposure, hit record, and then bring my camera down nice and low to the ground and use these rocks and grass as a way to reveal this location. I'm going to smoothly and slowly lift my camera up whilst crouching and then stand up and lift my camera as far as it will go. Let's take a look. And just like that, we've created a much more interesting shot that reveals this location. Camera movement and angles. Now, the UK has had a lot of rain recently, and as you can see, this part of the land has completely flooded. It's a total bog, rather disgusting, not very interesting, is exactly what a beginner might say. Whereas I see this as an opportunity to be more creative and get much more dynamic shots. This bog, this flooded patch of land, is actually creating a really nice reflection. To the untrained eye, it's an ugly bog, but with a bit of creativity, we can make our footage look much more interesting. Here's how a beginner might shoot this bog. This bog is disgusting and I have no idea why I'm here. They may just point their camera down like this, not a particularly flattering angle. And yeah, I would agree with the beginner. This bog does not look good. But look, let's use this water to our advantage to capture some much more creative looking shots. Now look, here's a little trick for you, okay? Now what you'll notice is that with smartphones, the lenses are normally in one of the corners. So for this, we want to spin our camera around because I want to try and get my lens as close as I can to the water. I'm also going to select slow motion for this. I'm going to use the wide angle lens. So we're in slow motion, 120 frames per second. We've got our lens nice and close to the water. I'm just going to tap to lock focus and exposure. I'm going to hit record. And I'm going to lean as far as I can over this water with my lens nice and close to the water. And I'm going to pull back. Like that. Now, was that the best shot in the world? No, of course it wasn't, but it was a lot better than shooting it at eye level and looking down. At least we used this water to our advantage and tried to get much more creative with our footage. Now, a lot of the techniques that I'm teaching you today all come down to mindset and just thinking differently when you're out on a shoot. A beginner sees a flooded patch of land, a disgusting bog, whereas someone who's professional and experienced sees a creative opportunity. Now, a beginner might look at this tree and think, well, I want to capture all of the tree in this shot. So again, at eye level, I'm going to point my camera down and then tilt up to show the top of the tree, like this. So what do we do to make this shot more interesting, and how can we keep our audience engaged? Well, we could start by getting much more creative with our camera angles and movement. This time I'm going to get nice and close to the tree. I'm going to point my camera up and then pull down whilst rotating the camera. Let's take a look. Another fantastic spot here, just looking out with this incredible view across Dartmoor. I really want to include this in the sequence. Now, this is what a beginner might do. Okay, so I've got my standard lens. I'm not going to lock focus and exposure, but I just want to show off this location. So I'm going to hit record. And I'm going to go for a classic pan. This is the go-to beginner maneuver. Just a pan from left to right. Now, there's nothing wrong with a pan, they're not great. They do look a little bit amateur. You don't see them often in Hollywood feature films. The reason being that when you pan, the camera doesn't move. It just stays on one axis. So it goes left, right, a tilt, up and down. Whereas in cinema, in feature films, the camera tends to move. It's either pushing forward, it's pulling back, it's sliding left, right, it's on a jib, a crane, getting lifted up. Whereas a pan, it's basic and it feels amateur. Not knocking pans. There is a time and a place for them, but just not today. Now for me, a pan isn't going to quite cut it for this shot. I really want the sequence to feel cinematic. I want it to feel like these shots belong in a Hollywood film. For me, I want to try and replicate a gimbal movement, a smooth push forward shot that shows off this landscape. So I'm going to select my wide angle lens, that way I'm instantly going to see more of this environment. I'm going to tap the screen to lock focus and exposure as always. I'm going to hit record and start walking forwards. And as long as I walk nice and steady, holding my phone with two hands, I get a nice stable shot. With the right technique and image stabilization, of course, you're able to replicate a camera move very similar to something shot on a gimbal. Transitions. Now, there are many types of transitions when it comes to filmmaking and video production, and these are a great way to make your footage look much more creative and professional. But if not executed correctly, can still make your footage look cheap and amateur. So let me show you some common mistakes and ways to fix them. Okay, so let me show you a basic wipe transition. This one's super easy, okay? So easy, in fact, I'm able to do it sat down. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to frame our shot. We're going to need two shots for this. This will be our first. Tap and hold your screen to lock focus and exposure. I know I say this all the time, but with this shot in particular, it's really, really important. I'm then going to slide my camera to the right using this rock as foreground and as a way of creating a wipe transition. The aim here is to fill the entire frame with something in the foreground, like this. Now, for our second shot, we're going to go to a new location and find another focal point. We're then going to replicate the exact same camera movement, same speed, everything. And this time, we're going to reveal our focal point. Now let's edit these two shots together using nothing but a simple cut. Now let's add a little bit more editing, music, and sound effects. Okay, so that's how a professional would capture one of these wipe transitions, but what sort of mistakes might a beginner make? Well, for start, not locking focus and exposure. Just look at this shot. Camera slides, but see how not only the exposure changes, but also the focus. The camera is now focused on this rock in the foreground. Let's look at the second shot. Camera movement not consistent and a horrible looking exposure change in the sky. Now let's edit these two clips together for comparison. Camera slides, exposure change, focus change, inconsistent movement, much less seamless and nowhere near as good as our first transition. Okay, moving on. Now, a lot of the techniques that I'm showing you today are relatively straightforward. You just need the knowledge. Personally, I'm always looking to learn new things, whether that's around cinematography, lighting, storytelling, video editing, and one of the best places to do that is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives. It offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and much, much more. If you're a creative looking to learn, explore, and discover new things, then Skillshare is the place to do it. Skillshare has literally thousands of classes to help you grow as a creative. If you're looking to learn how to edit videos, Skillshare has got your back. Filmmaking, videography, lighting, cinematography, Skillshare has a class on just about everything. Put simply, Skillshare helps you grow as a creative, get those extra skills needed to turn your hobby into a career, land the clients you've always wanted to work with, make more money, and be more creative. Whatever your goal, when it comes to creativity, Skillshare can help you get there. With classes to fit your schedule and skill level for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, you can binge knowledge to your heart's content. And the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. So you've got nothing to lose. Use the link, take a class, soak up some knowledge, and get creative. Shallow depth of field. Now, it's really important when shooting any sequence that you get a good variety of shots. You want nice big wide shots, medium shots, and close-ups. Now for this shot, I want to get a nice close-up shot of this grass with the background in nice soft focus. Take this shot here, for example. I haven't locked my focus or exposure. See how the camera is unable to determine what I want to focus on? See how it's focusing on the grass in the foreground and then to the background, so on and so forth, not what we want. But there's a very simple trick to giving your videos that blurry background look. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to simply tap and hold to lock focus and exposure on this grass in the foreground and hit record. I can now move my camera and I know that the camera will remain locked on this grass. This will really help give your footage a much more professional look. Creative mindset. Okay, I think it's really important to talk about having a creative and positive mindset when it comes to filmmaking and video production. A mistake I often see beginners make is that they'll set limitations on not only themselves, but also the equipment that they're using. Don't feel that just because you're shooting on a smartphone, you can't give your footage a more high-end look. It's totally possible to make your footage look cinematic and professional with the right mindset and a few accessories. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the gimbal light stand combo. This super easy to use and relatively cheap setup is a great way to give your footage that Hollywood look. Watch feature films and pay close attention to the way in which the camera moves. Then find ways to replicate that movement using your smartphone. This will instantly take your footage from beginner to pro. I've got plenty of videos on this channel dedicated to cinematic camera tricks. I will link them below. Sunset shots. Now behind me here, I've got two Dartmoor ponies and this incredible sunset that I'd love to feature in the end shot to this sequence. The end shot, it's such an important one. It's really important that I get this right. Please don't go anywhere. Now, here is how a beginner might capture this end shot. Okay, we've got this beautiful sunset. I'm going to get nice and close to these ponies, back towards the sun. That way the sun is hitting my focal point and lighting it up. I know this seems logical, but just wait for the pro version. I also want both ponies in this shot, so I'm just going to quickly pan from one to the other like this. Now, what was wrong with this shot? Let's break it down. Okay, again, it's shot at eye level, not particularly exciting, very ordinary. No real thought has gone into camera movement. The footage is shaky and difficult to watch. The pan from one pony to the other seems aggressive, and the shot isn't framed particularly well. Now, let's look at the pro version of this shot. This time, I'm going to get low to the ground and give this shot a much more interesting perspective. I'm also going to shoot towards the sun this time and put my focal point between myself and the sun. This will instantly create a more high contrast look, giving my focal point this beautiful silhouette, as well as giving my shot these incredible sun flares. Let's see a couple more examples. Don't worry, these things are nice and friendly. Who's your good boy? Okay, let's try a basic orbit shot. I'm just going to orbit my camera around to the left, again shooting into the sun. This not only gives the shot more depth, but also allows our focal point to reveal the sun as we move our camera. This is the wide shot. Let's try one more. Same camera movement, only this time a bit closer using the standard lens. Again, a much better shot, especially when you start to edit all of these clips together. Okay, now it would be absolutely criminal for me not to get this shot whilst I'm here. The sun isn't going to last long. I want to make the most of it and grab another potential end shot pushing forward across this landscape. Yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. A smooth push forward. This shot has everything. Smooth camera movement, wildlife, the sunset. This shot really shows off the landscape and would be a great way to end this sequence. Okay, so we've now captured all the footage needed to create 2 B-roll sequences. Let's start off by looking at the beginner B-roll sequence. Now, obviously that edit was packed full of mistakes, but hopefully you were able to easily identify them. Now let's see how that beginner B-roll sequence compares to the pro. Okay, so hopefully you'll agree that that second B-roll sequence was much better than the first. Those were just a few common beginner mistakes and ways to fix them. If you found this video useful, do let me know by giving it the old thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, learn more about video production, you can do that by watching one of my other videos just over there. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.